Welcome back to Loving's Guitar, where I like to talk about guitars and how they move me. Today, I want to do a response video to another creator, and she goes by Jojo Fry, and she rocks. Okay, so and that's her channel. It's Jojo Fry Rocks. So you should be able to find it. All right. Okay. She has a lot of knowledge she can impart to you. Trust me. If you've been around strings for long enough, there's chances are you know something about strings that most other people don't know, who don't know things about strings. All right. But she touched on something very touching. And you know what? Of the many years I've played, decades, right? I don't think I ever had that particular perspective. And what I mean by that is that so okay, so now we all know that there are several types of people who uh how they approach the guitar will dictate how long they stay in this era of beginnership, whatever they feel beginnership is. Okay, there's beginnership, and then there's feeling like a beginner, or like feeling like you've never gotten out of this beginner phase, like you haven't grown past that. So let me address a few things. Beginnership, maybe that's not a bad thing. Okay, so let's not be careful about how we say things with the words and what they mean. So to be a beginner could just very well mean that what happens if you're so forgetful you forgot everything you did yesterday. So, but you start all over every morning and without a clue of what you did yesterday. But you know you want to pick up that wooden thing with strings. So you go ahead and do it. All right. So now you got to start all over again. Now it's kind of like Groundhog Day over and over again, but you're a happy groundhog, right? I mean, you don't know that you could go further because well, you never even had a chance. You're not given that chance because when you wake up, you got to start all over again. So somewhere along the line, there's a crossroad that has to be crossed in order for, I think, that anchored connection, so anchored that it doesn't even matter if you're a beginner. Because, hey, you know what? Um, I'm a teacher and I still consider myself a beginner. So, am I a master? Master at what? I think I'm a master of getting up to the age of 63 so far. I've let my hair down. I've, let- I've done things that I don't have to do again because I've done that. I've got that checked off my list of things to do. But this whole thing about like how she was addressing specifically JoJo, the host of Jojo Fry Rocks, that wonderful YouTube channel and creator, I find a genuine um, ness to her channel. Maybe that's why I watch. And she's helped me to see other things that I didn't see. And, but, you know what? I have been working on helping others for decades. And I like what I do. And I like figuring things out that way. Unlocking something, that they don't even know they're putting so much energy into. Maybe the last video I mentioned about this technique, it wasn't a technique, it was an experiment. I do that sometimes. I run experiments on people. They don't know it, but it's not harming them. I'm basically just collecting data. but observing people, and not saying a thing about it, but just observing as a witness, not judging, just observing. And over time, you get this collective data, and then you could see something, and you go, "Oh, I know what that's going to look like 20 years from now because I've seen that with 20 years of data to support it through my own eyes." Not even being involved with any discussion or judgment or about it. Just, you know. One of the things observed was how long does the player need to, a new beginner need to look at their neck? Because you know what the chord shape, like even if you're just playing bar chords, okay? Even if you're just playing bar chords, just major stuff, like, do you need to look anymore? Right? You shouldn't look anymore. You should you should try instead use that energy of looking at your guitar, but use it to feel the music, to be carried away. If you get so carried away that you got lost, like you did the A section twice as long, and the rest of the band still has moved on to the B and the C section, that's actually better than you paying so much goddamn attention to your hands and see what it's supposed to be looking like. But you know what it looks like. You've had your hand for your whole life. You know what the fretboard looks like. Do you need to look at another one? You know this already, all right? Now you know how this feels when it's in your hand. And if you don't pay attention, look, close your eyes. Close your eyes, play the D chord. Right there, open D chord. This bar chord right there. Play that chord. Say it's a D chord. It feels like this in my hands when I'm on the neck, all right? Close your freaking eyes. Now, check this out. Go to a C. Go to the C based on the sixth string. Go play. Yeah, this is the C chord. Feel how this feels. Go to the E. Go open E. Now go back to the C. Go back and forth to the D. Go find the G. Go find the F. Find them without having to look for it. Then you know what? You actually see the neck in your head. And you feel the neck in your hand. How can you be so self-handicapped that you can't get around that? Because you know what? There's blind folks that can do this. There's blind folks. They can do this just as fine. Why do they excel? And you have been gifted. Now, okay, so close your eyes. Be the blind man for a second, or blind girl. Be that person. Tap into their superpower, because guess what? You're going to accelerate what your hand is sensing. That's right. Your hand. The more you touch your neck without looking at it, you're going to know everything about your neck. I guarantee you. I know it's pretty radical. I'm radical that way. I think the beginner should immediately, as soon as they figure out, as soon as I can give you a calling out of like 10 minutes of me calling out notes, and you pointing, immediately playing them. Boom, boom, boom. Once you get to that point, at that point, you know what? It's time. It's time to shut off the lights. I'll give you a progression, and I'll just give you a hint of what key it's related to, and then you can figure out how many times you're gonna have to switch modes or go to the 5-5, and do some turnarounds of 2-5-1s in order to get back to home. All right. But until then, you're a beginner. So you have the lights on, right? Okay, so the lights are on. Guess what? You still got your eyelids. Close your eyelids now. If you know your cowboy chords, like I'm sure you do, you can play them in the dark, right? Just imagine if you were confined in a dark cell, prison, Okay, but you got a guitar. Thank God they give you a guitar. You give you a guitar and a glass of water and some bread. Okay, but you have a guitar. You're naked. It's cold. It's concrete. It's not comfortable, but you got your freaking guitar. All right, you know what? It's dark as hell because there's no sunlight. The only thing you got is that guitar. You're gonna make music with that. You're gonna see things. You're gonna feel things. You're gonna warm yourself up because you found a way to do that. Now, learning to play guitar is like learning to do anything else except for one thing. You could be taught to play anything. You can. Few will actually make it sound really good when they're doing it. What's unique is when we want to sound better, and that better may not be better than people who can do anything else, be the best musician. It's just better for them. So, the beginner era. If the beginner era, it means that it's taken you too long to figure out how to jam with people. That's a beginner era that I can understand being, you want to get out of because you want to be able to jam with your fellows. So, what is that beginner era? Okay, so you could be a beginner and still sit in on a jam. They can say, "Hey, kid, you play a solo over A." Okay, so you play a little solo. You learn your pentatonic, so you can play. And if you have a little bit of a curiosity that you're willing to just watch and absorb. You can watch the bass player playing or the piano player or another guitar player if there's another guitar player on stage. You see what the chords they're playing. You can mimic that kind of stuff, right? After you see that mimicking of it, do you need to now look at your hand? No. If you need to catch what the band is doing. See what the drummer. Where is the drummer actually putting all his emphasis on? Is it just the one? Is it just the two? Is it a combination? Is there something that's being altered about what he's doing, his groove? Check out what's happening to the bass player. How is the bass player complementing what the drummer's doing? Are we on the same page? Because now you have a guitar now that's going to be thrown into this menagerie of stuff. So it's either it should never compete. It should be part of the weave. Guitar for many decades has taken such this forward lead of taking control of the space. So the guitar takes the space and the drums are the rhythm and the bass is it goes with the rhythm because it's bass and then there's this wall of sound guitar. I know, I get it. I came from that era and that big giant sound. It's hard. I get that. And now I'm changing the subject. I really wanted to talk about beginners and Jojo Fry. Because what she is talking about, I finally got to understand. And I got to be honest with you, I got teary eyed. Because it's not her lack of enthusiasm that she feels that she's in this beginner area, and she hasn't progressed that much further than that first year or year and a half she was playing. She pretty much topped out, and she feels like she hasn't advanced anymore. Scalable. She used the word scalable. It's an interesting word, scalable. And there was a few points that she was very spot on with. Nevertheless, point is this. I think what made me tear up is that this is a person who honestly loves music and she loves her guitars, and she longs to not feel the way she does about herself on the guitar. Despite her being able to play licks, she clearly shows you she can play licks. You know, she clearly knows her song libraries. You know, so she knows her stuff, but she feels in a way about her. And I could say just embrace how you feel about that, and actually write songs with that feeling. Now, depends. Not everyone's a songwriter. Some people just rely on other people's music to do something with their instruments. You know. But JoJo made what touched me is that it's like, you know what, she just needed the right teacher, because there's certain times when certain people, when they're young, I should say, they can nip something at the bud and either work their way past it very very fast, or soon after. But the older we get, the more settled in our ways about what we think the guitar is and what we can do with it, and then what our capabilities are and how fast can we get with using our capabilities. And if the mind shift doesn't happen early, it may not happen at all. And that's when I get emotional. I go, oh dear Lord. And you know, it occurred to me, you know, so my collective data that yes, there is a pattern, you know. But is there a way to get out of it? I don't know. So what can I do? What would I impart, you know? Because there's a lot of people like that, folks, you know. Is that a switch that gets flicked on? I don't know. Before I got to Berklee College of Music, I honestly felt like I wasn't going to get, they weren't going to accept me. You know, I was definitely not as a good reader as fast as all the other cats were. And my guitar playing was following the path of the diddly 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 diddly, you know, the era of the diddlies. And although I was already being influenced by, like, say, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Oscar Peterson, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, you know, Fitch's Brew kind of stuff, you know, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, by the time I got to Berklee, despite me not having, you know, readership, you know, I couldn't read that well. I kind of felt like, you know what? Just put me in front of someone who's going to judge me. Let them witness me, right? And so I did that, and yeah, I did get in. And here's an interesting thing: is that that was only like from uh, in less than 2 years from when I actually started taking guitar seriously. You know, maybe 2.5 years, and that was it. I was I was off to Berklee. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop thinking about guitar, so I just let it consume me. And then I wanted more. I always wanted more. Not more guitars or more gear. I wanted to listen more. I was really into Frank Zappa. So Frank Zappa is like my biggest mentor through my young adolescence, teaching teaching me music, teaching me scales and modes and composition and weirdness and arrangements and stuff. So, you know, by the time I got to Berklee, you know, I was really having a good time, like in arrangement class, and you know, so doing big band arrangements. It's like exactly what I was like was turning me on as a teenager, listening to Zappa. And even as a guitar player, Zappa was very interesting to me because he didn't sound like everybody else. Whereas everybody else sounded like each other, but different forms of each other. Zappa was different, you know? Zappa was just Zappa, you know? And I liked that he was unique. He had a unique weirdness approach. Zappa started as a drummer, so I'm sure, along the way, a guitar was in his hand, and then at that moment he was a beginner. But how he approached being a beginner might have been different. And so we might want to ponder what is being a beginner, and how do we use that force to compel us to want even more, because we're beginners, because we're that thirsty to get through this. And what can I do? What do I need to do? There's one method. One method is, okay, so you got a few notes on a page. I don't know, 10 notes on a page. And next week you come back and now there's 40 notes on a page. All right, okay. And then the week after that, there's not what, I don't know, 120 notes on the page, right? And then the week after that, so you get to 500 notes on the page, right? So now you keep on doing that. You're going to learn a lot of notes on the page, and that's a good thing. That's one thing you want to learn too, as well. It doesn't hurt, and then you're able to like pick up manuscripts and scores and actually open them up, and then you can hear all the music as you're seeing the notes on the page. It's literally written for you, and all those sounds are already in your head. They're so the beginner era for me included reading scores, and my favorite thing to do at the same time I was completely into the Sex Pistols was to read Beethoven orchestral scores. Especially Eroica, Symphony Number 3 in E flat major. So I can conduct all four movements. I have that down. So, and I think everybody should, because wow, that's punk rock. That's punk rock. Anyway, beginner. So, I think there's a difference between playing the guitar and, a guitarist and a person who can play guitar. So I used to say this, and that's what's painful now, and I feel like I feel bad. I feel really, really bad. Because I used to think, there's two types of guitarists. People who can play guitar and guitarists. Guitar players, guitarists. People who can play guitar and guitarists. Now, some pros out there who are not necessarily guitarists, but who can play guitar are professionals. They make a lot of money. And on the same token, you have this exceptional guitar players who can't make a dime. It has nothing to do with, so one doesn't necessarily mean the other. They don't both go hand in hand. The beginner guitarist, there's nothing wrong with being a beginner, but if you feel like you're a beginner still, decades later, and you still don't feel like, this is hard, I would never tell anyone to give up. Unless you want to give up. I mean, I'll be your sounding board if you want, but I'm not going to encourage you to give up. One of the factors that I think can bring someone to this feeling like they haven't progressed. It's because, true, it's very easy to get stuck in the easy mode with guitar, meaning that nowadays, if you do get a chance to get a music book with like a staff and notes and on it, chances are the guitar players nowadays will all just get tablature stuff. So, and nowadays, we're not actually buying the physical paper anymore. So it's now it's you're reading music if you could on tablature on your iPhone or a mobile device. Whereas when my generation, if we bought a lead sheet to I Want to Rock and Roll by Kiss. It was a lead sheet. You can open it up to, and you put it on on your music stand. There it is. The whole song. You might have that. You flip the song, flip one of the pages, but usually you could do it all with those two open pages. So the whole thing was there for you to work on. Now the idea that we have to get there faster and skip now the essential steps. So I think one of the essential steps in order to get out of the beginner role is to not rely so much on looking anymore. I know that's kind of brutal, because the thing that happens then your ear is going to perk up, your hand is going to perk up, your feelings, your tactile feelings, and more importantly, your feelings about playing the instrument will no more have to share its space with all that visual information you're trying to take in as you're watching yourself play the guitar, making sure your fingers are right on the frets and the right string. Making sure that, oh yeah, I'm right there. Okay, now I'm ready. I can do this. Yeah. So that's a lot of space. That's a lot of head space. That head space could be used for other things. Other things that say, in nanoseconds can figure out a multitude of options that I could do this, I could do that. What if I do this? What happens if we get to this point and this happens? All of that in nanoseconds before you even hit it. And you didn't have to look at it. Just felt like that's where it was supposed to be. So the question then is like, when is it going to take for you to feel that way? Well, you could start by cheating, I think. You can start by, just like you learned the pentatonic, like, your third week of playing guitar, some moron taught you the pentatonic, right? And then you do that pentatonic. Now you do that pentatonic for the next 5 decades. Great. Now you've got that down. 5 decades later. Or 4, whatever. How many decades you want to call it, right? Great. Bet you've been looking at it the whole time, too, right? Uh-huh. What did you get out of it? If I called out a no, would you be able to pick it on the second or third string, huh? Would you be able to do that? Decades you playing your pentatonic, and what did you learn from that? Oh, I know. You unlocked a couple of diddly diddlies, didn't you? And you could do those diddly diddlies on God, all over the neck, Mm-hmm. I'm going to just guess that even a small handful of you can even, tell me the notes you're hitting if you move from one place to the other. And then I throw in another key. Do the same diddly. And you're like, Or how about not do it in notes? Just tell me in steps. Or how about this? Tell me the relative. What is the relative chord built off of that note on a given mode or a given scale? What is that? You know, am I talking? Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. What are we doing? Are we doing the 5 of 5? So here's the thing. Ear training is great if you practice it. If you don't, you're gonna you mess up your ear training. You got to keep up with it. 2, arranging is great, but you don't really get the opportunity unless you can write it down and then I don't know. Well, personally, if you write it down, that's where you really get the kick out of it. But then you arrange it, and then you got your mates to play it if they can read it, or you can interpret it for them to them. And so that's a connection to you. That's not a you see. I think in order to get a clearer connection to your instrument, a certain amount of detachment for other things, unnecessary baggage during the flight is just excess weight. It's taking up too much space. Head space, that is. And when you're a guitar player, you need as much head space as possible because your head is already inflated with all the guitar gizmos inside your head. So, as a beginner, I would suggest one thing. I think most beginners I'd say, get the wrong guitar for their first guitar. Like any guitar that's shaped like this as your first guitar is the wrong guitar. I'll tell you that a little later, but if it has one of these things, yeah. Wrong guitar for your first guitar. Absolutely. I do. I love wiggle sticks, but as a first guitar, as you're learning to do things, especially the critical first year or year and a half, no, you don't want this. No. Trust me. Otherwise, don't trust me. Pay the price. Pay the price of thinking that this is going to get you past the stage that you need to get through. Because in order to unlock everything, you just got to unlock it. That's it. You got to do a little bit of the painful hard work. And you might have to have someone slapping you behind your head. Well, not, metaphorically, that is. Like a coach, so I could do that for you. So you got homework to do, but you shouldn't feel bad about the homework. You should feel inspired to do the homework. Get through the homework. Do it. Don't do it for me, because what you're coming to see me so I can yell at you? Don't do me that. I don't want to go there. I want you to show me that I'm such a great teacher. Because I want you inspired to improve yourself, to put in the work. There was a word that was commonly used amongst those who had to put in their time in order to get a piece done. It was called shedding, Not shredding, shedding. Basically like going to the shack where you get to, you practice your whatever you need to do for the gig, whatever, and you get to keep on practicing till you get that part, and that's shedding. You're basically away from everyone. You don't eat. You don't go see your girlfriend or boyfriend. You don't go out with the party. No, because you're shedding. I gotta shed. Sorry, listen. I gotta spend this weekend shedding. Listen, you know what? That's cool, because other musicians that I knew about when I was younger, there were cats shedding because they knew they had like a session to do. And guess what? They have to shed sometimes. Even the pros, right? And these guys know how to read. They do all of that. They have chops and all of that. So the beginners and the intermediates. So the answer is, oh yeah. Oh, you just got to shed. So you lock yourself in a room, pull out Mary Had a Little Lamb if you have to, and start like mastering the hell out of it. And as soon as you do it, turn the whole page, everything upside down, and read it that way. See what kind of song you got. Yeah, exactly. Start doing that now. Start with Mary Had a Little Lamb, and work your way up to like whatever the something that you can read, and just a little bit harder every day, just slightly. You can read. You start out with the Mary Had a Little Lambs, and keep on adding something you can read that's harder and harder and harder. And guess what? By the time in about a month to 2 months from that point, you not only will Mary Had a Little Lamb sound so freaking awesome. It's probably like now this jazz etude. And you've probably if turned this into an exploratory. That your thirst for like, oh, give me something else to read will have been developed. But you wouldn't have known that if somebody wasn't there telling you, go ahead and do it. You got to shed. You got to do this. Now, for me, I haven't had not that many. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been shedding, so I lack that. Except for the stuff that I work on for my own stuff, like I don't call that shedding. I just call that a process. What I feel like I'm shedding is when I'm working on someone else's project. It's like, oh God, now I have a part that I got to do, and I got to work on that part. Now I got to like, it's not just for me; it's for someone else. So it even means more, heightens for me uh, the intensity. So, how do I feel about Jojo Fry? I think she humanized it, or at least she made me realize that sometimes I can be an asshole. Or at least I feel that way now, because I didn't feel like um, I was as helpful as I truly wanted to be, and I think I failed. But I want to make it up. I want to learn how to allow beginners who are in this kind of like this beginner sense, and I get it for them. God, and I have so much data about this, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't figured it out so well yet. But now it makes me think about, maybe I should revisit this and see if I can tap into breaking this connection or this disconnection. See, it, this like for me, Jojo Fry um, is a perfect example of someone who actually loves music, loves her guitars, loves the whole culture of being a guitar player, and just even being in front of a camera and telling people, "Hey, look, I love guitars." She doesn't lack any of that. And for that reason alone, she should stay on her channel and grow her channel even more. She's got a ton more of people subscribed to her than nobody's watching this channel. She's entertaining, and she's just genuine, I think. But this struck with me something deep in me, and I want to see if there's a way, if I can unlock this, because it's with my students, I have improved, them. They have improved themselves with me. But this beginner sense, sort of how she interprets how she feels about herself, and like that, I see it now, and I think it would be nice if I could figure out a way for some to to unlock that for someone else. See, here's the thing. I don't know if I ever unlocked it for me. I think it might have just been unlocked the very first time. I don't know. I think I had a lot to learn when I was a kid. I didn't know anything about music, but um, I knew that certain things made sense, and I didn't know anything about music. It sounds good here, sounds good there. If I tap this, I tap that, tap it in time. That makes sense to me. This is before even learning anything about music. Is that a natural ability? Nature? Is that a gift passed on? I don't know. And can certain talents be developed? I believe so. I think with enough nourishment, you can build anything. Anyway, hey, listen, folks, thanks for letting me rant on a little bit about how I feel about things. If you like this kind of shenanigans, along with the talks from an old punk rocker, it'd be really cool if you hit the like button, share. If you know someone who'd like this, put the notification button. You may see me pop up on your screen and say, "Hey, check this out." Be really cool if you're subscribed, and if you want to support me, there's links in the description for that. Patreon, buy me a coffee. Anyway, see you on the next time I get all choked up. All right, see ya. And I said that already. Be nice to each other. All right.